Okay, so this is this whole piece about where we are in terms of full, equal, and equitable partnership. And this is about a definition that was developed by the State Department of Education. And we can go to the next slide, Christina. When we look at the real definition, what we're talking about is full, equal, and equitable partnerships among families, educators, community partners to promote children's learning from birth through college and career. Now, this is important because these are not words on a paper. This was intentionally done, and it took several months to work on this with the Department of Education. They brought together families, schools, all kinds of folks from schools as far as staff in schools, community partners, other state departments, and actually and a lot of, and foundations. The idea was that Connecticut did not have kind of a consistent definition for family engagement. And this is what was developed, again, over a period of time. The important piece here is partnership. And this is something that families said over and over again. They told very clearly that they wanted to be partners in their children's education. They wanted opportunities to work with school systems. And so our whole idea about parents really just being at home and not really having a whole lot to offer, we're gonna just bust that myth to pieces through the parent-teacher home visitation program. This is about equal voice. And when parents talked about partnerships, what we're talking about is equal voice. Each brings something very valuable to the table when we're talking about children at the center of learning. And so it is a shift in mindset in terms of how we work with families. So with this whole idea of the definition, the state also talked about with others about how this would be accomplished. And thus the guiding principles this is the how. These are the conditions around high impact family engagement. Family engagement, as you know, I might be speaking to the choir here, but family engagement is relational and foundational in terms of how we do things. And so the first piece about building trust and respect talks about, again, how we honor families and recognize the value that families bring to the conversation, particularly when we're talking about, again, looking at students in the center. So what do teachers bring? Educators in the school, others in the school, and what do parents bring to the table? And each brings a wealth of information. In fact, there's a whole study that talks about, Louis Moll talks about funds of knowledge, and the funds of knowledge that are gained by beginning to understand families. The second one is about two-way conversations. That's about listening to what families have to say about their children's interests and challenge. This is aspirational in terms of what parents really want for their children. And the parent-teacher home visitation program is really built on this first visit is really a conversational visit and listening to what parents have to say. What do they want for their children? What are their hopes and dreams for their children? I know I have adult children, and when I went to school, I don't think one person asked me about what my hopes and dreams were for my child. I kind of kept it to myself, but even having to say it really, it helps a parent to articulate what they want for their children. 3, 4, and 5 talk about links to family learning. So a teacher is modeling, right, high quality learning practices. They're sharing information frequently with parents, letting parents know where they are. And remember, because you've established a relationship in the beginning, these are conversations, again, that can happen because now people trust each other. There's social capital in terms of what happens. If we all thought about, who are the people that we trust for information? Most of the people that we trust for our information, again, are people that we've established a relationship with. This is incredibly important for families who have been on the outside sometimes, disenfranchised, really haven't had a chance to have those conversations. Also talking with parents about what teachers and families can do together to support learning. Each has a stake in what happens in terms of the conversation. And 3, 4, and 5 really take place not right away, but they take place, and Christina's going to talk about this. They really take place in the second visit. The first visit is relational. It's getting to know the parent. It's conversational. No clipboards go, right? No forms to fill out at this point. We're not telling families, and it's not punitive in terms of what you've done wrong. We're there to kind of listen and, again, to establish that relationship. And the sixth piece is cultural competence. So this is a really important piece of what the parent-teacher home visitation program can provide, and that is a new awareness and a different mindset around a family's culture, right, their needs and wants, and a new understanding that can actually happen. So the reason why we look at parent-teacher home visitation as a high impact family engagement practice is because guess what? It hits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's more than a double whammy. This program really hits all of these guiding principles that are important and are foundational when we talk about family engagement. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Christina. So this slide, and I know that Christina is very familiar with this slide. This slide was developed by the U.S. Department of Education and also the Flamboyant Foundation. And it might be a little bit hard to read, but if you see, and all of the stuff on the left side, those are things that schools are doing on an ongoing basis in Connecticut. They're all good. It's good stuff. But if we talk about elevating practice, and if we look at how we connect with families, again, for achievement, academic achievement, when we're looking to the right-hand side, the area that has the little melon-colored area, what you're going to see is very much over on the right-hand side are home visits. Home visits are recognized as a high impact, again, family engagement practice that really gets to the issues of looking at student achievement. Are there any questions about this, or does anybody have any comments about this? I'm going to stop 1 second. You can raise your hands. You can speak up if you want. Any thoughts? So what we know is, okay, we'll go next. Here you go. Christina's a mover person. Go ahead. There we go. Okay, why is this the right model, right? The core practice is supported by research. So the parent-teacher home visitation program has a lot of research that supports what actually happens as a result of the visits. So what we know is that students do better academically. Actually, when we talk about chronically absent, we have a 22% less likely to be chronically absent as a result of this program. And there's another interesting statistic, and this is kind of very new to the research. Even if 10% of the students in the school have a home visitation program, it increases all of these other factors. In other words, it's beginning to change the culture of the school and what happens in the school. 35% of the students are more likely to do well on ELA tests and also math tests. And teachers change their thinking about students. So we did a survey which Christine helped to create in last March for teachers and families. And that was really about what was happening. Actually, Julie Church was also involved in this survey development, Julie Church. And it wasn't huge and robust, but it gave us some great information. It gave us great information. And what we heard is that families loved being visited by their teacher. And teachers were the trusted messengers. That's who they wanted to hear from. And they appreciated the visits and they wanted more. Teachers actually said, guess what? I think we need a little bit more training around family engagement. And so thus our kind of training in terms of bringing up more family engagement. So this is what it is. There's no substitute. This is the bridge model, which, as we said, is a virtual model right now because of COVID. But the original program is really built on visits to the home. And Christina can talk a little bit more about that. Visiting the home. It's focused on building relationships with families, a time to recognize family strengths. In other words, beginning to do this program, the assumption is that families are doing things, that they have strengths to offer, and we're in not a deficit model, but a strength-based model. It's an opportunity to listen and learn. What teachers also said to us is that we learned so much. I mean, the visits that I did and was involved with, I learned so much from listening to families and listening to what they talked about and listen to what their concerns were and how they wanted, again, to partner with schools. And again, time for families and teachers to partner. There's that word again, partner, authentic partnership. And the bridge is conducted right now online. You can go to the next one. I'm going to tell you what it's not. It is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. PTHV is a program of attraction. In other words, teachers say, sign me up, this sounds great. School personnel say, sign me up, this sounds great. I really want to do this. It's also not mandatory for families. Families choose in having teacher visits. It's not a tutoring session, so we're not there to kind of bring out all the stuff and start with our teaching model in schools. It is, again, conversational, relational, and a time to just listen. It's not a visit that focuses on the deficits. In other words, we know that absenteeism and attendance is a real issue, but this is something that can come later on. The core principles of the program, again, are one, that the visits are voluntary, and that's for families. They're invited. Educators are trained and they're compensated for the work that they do. We don't target students because they're truant or they're bad. There may be a lot of tier 2 families that you'll visit, and it may be in the mix, but we're not specifically, the model does not specifically marginalize, try and work with marginalized families. Again, because the whole emphasis is on meeting families where they are. It's aspirational, so that parents get a chance to share their hopes and dreams. And guess what? Teachers even talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they want as far as their hopes and their dreams for their students. And usually, in all cases, people go in pairs. But I want you to know that a teacher, and the gold standard, is the one who conducts the visit. and there may be somebody else who goes along with them, virtual or in-person kind of visits, to help to reflect and share what they heard and how they'll move forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine. She has such good information, and so I want her to talk about what happens in Windsor and the outcomes that happened in Windsor. So Christine, take the stage.
Thank you, Betsy, and thank you everyone for allowing me the opportunity to share what we're doing in Windsor. I share space here with my colleague in the registration office. Just give me 1 second so I can just let her know that I'm presenting now. Okay, so this is our high impact strategy. We have been doing parent-teacher home visits in Windsor for 4 years now. I've been with the district a year and a half. So when I found out we were doing it, I wanted to level up a little bit. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our journey in the last year and a half. So today, our purpose, process, and payoff for you is to provide a brief overview of how Windsor is using high impact strategy from the State Department's framework on family engagement to support that work of family engagement. And our process today, I'm just going to take you through some really high level highlights of our implementation process. And it's my hope that your district will use this model to support family engagement, to increase links to learning, and to reduce chronic absenteeism in your districts. So here's a short video. It's probably like 1 minute and 30 something seconds about the model when it first came out in Windsor around 2017, 2018. And so I just wanted to show you a clip of what the conversations were like then. And please.
The home visit program that we've initiated in Windsor through funding through the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving is an effort to connect our families and our teachers. It's the first time that anybody from the educational side of the world has asked them, what do you want for your child? What are your hopes and dreams for the child?
Our first meeting, Jade was very excited.
Jade showed her around the house. Of course, you showed her your toys. Jade has health issues, so just having that extra relationship with Laura made it easier for myself.
She was also a volunteer in my classroom. It was a very different feel of the whole school year.
That level of relationship is invaluable because kids compartmentalize teachers, and they think that they only live at school and they sleep in the file cabinet. The teachers believe that 80% of their kids did better after the home visit behaviorally or academically or both. I may not be able to point to and say this 10-point increase on your standardized test score came because of this home visit, but we know from the research that those aspects of connectivity, relationship, partnership, belonging make a significant difference in student achievement.
The parents, I think when they saw me outside of school, just made them feel like I was a person too.
How do you feel about Miss Eskenazi?
She's like a mother teacher.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. It gives you a little snippet about, the relationship with a parent, the child, and a teacher, and what that looks like in the classroom. Just a little snippet. And so our process here in Windsor is to every year we provide refresher workshops for teachers in May and in early August. So we do it in May to prepare for teachers for the early August implementation, and then again in early August for those teachers who weren't had the opportunity to take the training in May to be prepared so that they can implement in September and October. So we train new teachers when they come in. Last year we trained about 20 to 30 teachers. We had about 40 in the district that came in, and we do that late August and September when they do the new teacher training and orientation. Our parent-teacher home visits, we, in this office, out of the Office of Family and Community Partnership, we email all of our district to inform them that parent-teacher home visiting model is now ready for implementation. And so we do that in August and in September, and then again in October. And then there's data collection paperwork that we receive from the teachers who go out on the visits, and they send that to our office, and then we process that information. The implementation of parent-teacher home visits are from, like I said, early August to the end of November. We try to give them some cushion to engage and build relationships with families, so that when they have their parent-teacher conference in November, they've already established a really good relationship and rapport. And so the conversations about their child's progress is much easier to have. The second round of our academic visits usually start in January to March. This year was a little later, obviously, because of COVID and making sure folks really wanted to do this again and getting buy-in. And so we are now extending from March to possibly the end of May. So we're still trying to figure out how far out we want to go, because our teachers just completed their parent-teacher March home parent-teacher conferences. And so once they come back from the spring break, they just want to really hit the ground running with the families and get them to really be participating in opportunities for linked to learning. So as you saw on the guiding practices or the guiding principles to our State Department of Ed's framework, we want to listen to our families, and we want to have two-way communication. And so usually what happens is, and Betsy mentioned that there's a bridge visit. And so this year we did those bridge visits. We had a couple brave souls who went out and went to the homes of families and sat on their porches and had conversations with them. They felt like that was really important. And that more so came from the high school teachers who wanted to make connections. And so once you have your initial schedule set, you call your family, you schedule that visit, you want to introduce yourself when you're at the home, right? You want to introduce yourself obviously beforehand when you're scheduling, but when you get there, you want to reintroduce yourself. You want to listen, just tell them, hey, I'm here to learn about your family's experience, what your students' interests are, and what are your goals and your hopes and dreams, as Betsy alluded to earlier. And then as you're sitting there, you can have, if you're in person, you can have your family show you around. So Miss Eskenazi the family had shown Miss Eskenazi the daughter's room, and the daughter was showing toys, and they were sitting in the living room, just talking about life experiences and what the mom wanted for their child. And they were talking in plain language. Sometimes we get so caught up as educators to what is it called, edge-speak, and we forget that families have no idea what we're trying to tell them. So we try to have conversations with them in plain language. We set expectations. What are your expectations for your child? We'll set some of those same expectations in our classrooms. And if there's an opportunity to say, if the parent is like, I'm really worried about reading or math, say something around the lines of sharing some resources for linked to learning. Here's an activity that you can do with your child in the meantime until, I understand more about where your child is. Again, Betsy alluded to no paperwork, and we just want to ensure that you go hands-free. We really want the experience to be relational. Just learn about the families. It's sometimes they might have you there for an hour or two because they want to feed you, and they just want to tell you all of their life experiences. And so we just kind of take that in and just be a listening partner. So in Windsor, our data collection process is pretty, I wouldn't say extensive, but I've been tweaking it for the last year and a half, kind of molding some of the questions that we're asking to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what we're trying to figure out, right? And so, we want to be able to provide links to learning and strategies to links to learning. We want to be able to reduce chronic absenteeism. We want to be able to support social emotional learning. And so what we found in our data collection process, we have our teachers submit summaries. So there's about 4 questions on those summaries, and they're very targeted. And so we asked them something like, what's your, how will this information change your instructional practice? And then we also give them the extra pay forms, and we formulated those extra pay forms to make sure that our grant information is on there, because that is funded out of this office, the Office of Family and Community Partnership. We keep all of this data in 2 different forms of data collection. One is an Excel spreadsheet. So the extra pay forms have a series of information. So it has the name of the student, it has, the pay of the teacher, how many hours they spent there. So it has a couple of data sets from the extra pay forms. In addition to that, the teacher summaries we pull out and we compile in one document for each of the principals, so that the principals have a summary of what all of their teachers and family experiences have been. So that's in a Word document. And then in this particular Excel spreadsheet, which I know you can't see, but I just wanted to give you at least a sample of how we're collecting the information. And then in the next 2 slides, you'll see how it's been put together more cohesively. All of these summaries and extra pay forms need to be signed off by the principal before it comes to this office, so that the principal knows that it's happening. And then, we're working with if you don't have an evaluator to help you process all this information, if there's a data designee in your district, you want to connect with that particular person. What we ended up doing was taking all of our extra pay forms, all of our extra summaries. I have a public ally here helping me. She's our family engagement liaison, and she read through all of these summaries. So before I got here, all of this data was sitting in the drawer. And I think that's why I'm really excited about the fact that we're able to move the needle a little bit, because she's here and she's been helping to put this information together. So what we realized is that there's a number of categories that we were seeing in these summaries, and we wanted to lift that up so that we could share that with teachers. And so you might not be able to see it, but there's columns on social emotional, behavioral, math, etc. And we'll go into a little more detail in the next slide. So here's the quantitative data report that we received. And then in the next slide is it's quantitative, but it's also our qualitative data that we've been tracking. So here, this is how we are supporting the parent-teacher home visit model. You'll see that in 2017, when we first launched, we had 156 total home visits, which collectively, excluding the student, touched on 368 families. And you're saying, well, how's that possible if there was only 156 home visits? Well, because one home visit could have collectively had 5 family members. And if we could touch the lives of 5 family members, that makes our job so much easier, because then our connections are so much stronger. And so you'll see over the years, they may have decreased slightly. This year, I'm super proud because of COVID, it didn't stop us. And we have one particular school that just really knocked it out the park, which is Pequannock in that turquoise field. I gave him, we had set some goals in this office to say, we're going to increase our parent-teacher home visits by 10%. And this particular principal, this is year 1 for him in our district, and he showed up, and he showed up well. And so he kept pushing the message, I want you guys to do parent-teacher home visits. It's valuable. I love it. And that particular teacher who you saw in the video is actually at his school and still conducts home visits. So we're super excited to share this information. You'll see the fluctuation between schools and how they've done, and the number of families that we continue to touch upon. On the bottom graph, you'll see the total number of staff participation. And of course, the colors reflect the schools that are represented. And so this was a good talking point. So in our cabinet admin meetings and our principal meetings, I use this as a point of conversation to say, listen, next year, or even in our second round of home visits, we really need to level up. We really need to be building relationships with our families. It's really important, and it tells, it shows that it helps to reduce chronic absenteeism. In that Excel spreadsheet in the slide before, I wanted to share with you all that we're also tracking like the attendance of students and whether that's increased over time, and also Swiss data on behavior. So we're also tracking that information. And so here again, we're still supporting parent-teacher home visits. So those summaries really compiled over the last 4 years what teacher insights were. And so 98% of our teachers said that they learned about the family's culture and their home life. 85% of the families said that 85% of the teachers said that their hopes and dreams and goals really inform their instructional practice and how to adjust themselves mid-course. And so 75% of our teachers also said that they changed their thinking about the families and our students. And so it really shows you that, parent-teacher home visits really can make a difference in those teachers who are really buying into the model and who really appreciate the fact that they can build relationships with families to help their instruction in the classroom. What you'll also see on the bottom portion of the slide is that in that Excel spreadsheet, we were tracking social emotional. We were kind of lifting the information from the summaries of what the teachers were saying. And this is, again, compiled over 4 years. Now, we have it for each year, and you can see the variances in each of these particular subject or issue areas or challenge areas. And so 50% of our teachers over the last 4 years have been working with students around social emotional learning. 32% of our teachers are focused on reading in English and trying to provide family strategies and really build skills for our students, but they've been focused on that, and their conversations have been built around that during our parent-teacher home visits. And so I don't want to keep reading the slide. You'll see the data that's there, and that's really just been where the teachers plan to focus on for the rest of the school year until their second academic visit. Betsy?
Hi. Okay, let's see, unmute myself, right? Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Okay, I'm unmuted. Thank you. I'm just going to do the nuts and bolts, and we're going to give you a little bit of time to talk about it. But again, I think that Christina really brought home the idea that that this is a model that is certainly can address. I know that people have a lot of concerns right now about truancy and chronic absenteeism. And although this is not, truancy prevention or, a model to address chronic absenteeism, you can see that the effect that it has on attendance and connection to school. So there are some things that we think are really important as you're thinking about this, and I hope people can kind of see the possibilities, and we'll certainly give you a chance to talk. But the idea is really that you really need to introduce the concept to school staff, and that it's a program of attraction, so that people get a sense of buy-in from teachers. And we really suggest that as you're considering this, that you talk to teacher union. In a lot of cases, it just is important to kind of share what you're planning on doing, and if there are any kinds of questions that need to be answered, so much easier to do it up front rather than start something and have to kind of redo things afterwards. It is absolutely imperative that principals are involved in what you're doing. It's important because not only does the principal need to know about it, and Christina certainly went through that whole piece. Russell Sills was a principal. He still is a principal. And Enfield, he moved from Windsor to Enfield, and guess what? He still is doing parent-teacher home visitation. But that whole idea of what's happening. Yeah, Christina?
I just wanted to add that we didn't go into contract with the teacher union. This was really supported by our superintendent or our former superintendent, and it's continuing to be supported by our current newly elected superintendent, Dr. Hill. But we didn't go through teacher union. I think what happened here in Windsor was that, our superintendent said, hey, we have this model. We want to engage families. We want a couple teachers to volunteer to help us out. You'll be paid through it. And teachers were paid their normal contract rate, and they were paid through our office through the funding that we received from the Harper Foundation for Public Giving. And what, I know that there's a lot of questions about, what about teacher unions? What will they say? Will we need to go into contract? The conversations, I think, need to be started with the superintendent so that they can help to support the movement. And so I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to think, oh, did Christina go through teacher union? Is there a contract? Is there any of that? we got buy-in from our superintendent, and we were just blessed beyond measure from there.
Great, good news, good news. But we just wanted to put that out there because different, systems operate differently. But superintendent support is, of course, that's at the district level, which really makes a difference. In terms of dollars and funding, I know that school districts right now are looking at the ESSER 2 money. And again, I know also that the State Department of Education is writing some guidance in terms of, what are the priorities and what funding might look like for family engagement. Interesting, when guidance went out to superintendents, the second thing as far as priority was community and family engagement. So it is an important aspect of what the State Department of Education is looking at. And again, Title I money or the new ESSER money certainly can be used as you're planning for the coming year. Teachers and others conducting the visits need to be trained. We can't stress that enough. I did a training early this morning, and a superintendent had said, "But Betsy, this would require training." I mean, people just think that they can do a visit. This is a little different, right? This is a mind shift. So you're really in a paradigm shift as well. What we're looking at is working with parents and partnerships. And if you're visiting parent homes, you really need to have that kind of training so that things don't go, the wrong way. We don't want them to go the wrong way. We absolutely, positively want this to be a program that is, that grows and is important. So the other piece is determine the budget and funding source. Visits, again, as we said, are usually in pairs. And, typically we're kind of doing this estimate, and I guess Christina can kind of be there too, but nationally it's about $70 per visit. That's with 2 people.
Yeah, in that Excel spreadsheet, that's also tracked the dollar amount for those who are going on visits. So if you have a teacher, you would pay them their contract rate. And then if you have like a family resource coordinator or a family liaison, you would pay them their contract rate. But roughly that's about the average. What I noticed in our district is roughly maybe $60, $65 for 2 people going on 1 visit.
Right. So just remember, one of the gold model, again, is that there are 2 visits that happen with families. So this is the important piece, right? The first is the relational. You establish the relationship, kind of make sure that parents know how to contact teachers, and that teachers can contact parents, that there's that open line of communication. The second visit is equally important, because then we talk about academics, right? And we get to that point of helping parents to understand what's happening in the classroom and what are some of the, what are the expectations, and how can you reinforce what we're doing in the classroom. One important piece is really there needs to be, I know Christina is at the district level, she's kind of the glue person in terms of making sure that that all the spinning tops are connected. So again, a person in the building is really important in terms of helping to make sure that that schedules are met, that information is collected, and that that the first visit and the second visit actually happen. I think so. Here we are now. So these are questions and next steps, but I also want to throw something else out there. What are the possibilities for this, for your school or for your district? So anybody raise your hand. We have 10 more minutes. I have to do evaluation, but we should there are questions.
We have a question in the chat box from Rachel. Thank you, Rachel, for your question. So she's asking if the visits are voluntary, and she's just curious to know how the visitors approach that. So what do you say to the families when you first connect about coming to visits? And she's also curious about the effect of age on the visits. I can see elementary students being very excited to have a teacher visit, but I can also see middle and high school students being less enthusiastic. So can we speak to that? And we have the data to speak to the middle school and some about the high school. So it really is about your approach. Some folks use parent-teacher home visits in the transitional years. So in our district, we use it for kindergarten, 3rd grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, and I added 12th grade because it's really important for our families to understand the transition from high school to college. And a lot of families are really scared. I mean, I have a 21-year-old next month who's a junior in college, and nobody really walked me through the process. So although I'm in education, and I know some of what needs to happen, I think it's really important that we add 12th grade into that transition year. And to your first question about the visits and what do you say, in the April 8th training that Betsy has happening, they actually give you a script. Or in the national organization also gives you a script on what to say. So they give you all the tools to prepare for that conversation. They give you like step-by-step instructions on how to schedule using a tool to do all of those components. So even though middle and high school might be a little less enthusiastic, I don't know if you noticed in our data from on one of the slides that our middle school, Sage Park, really did a phenomenal job last year with visits. And we have tons of information that I can share with you, Rachel, if you're interested, just to kind of see what that looks like and what they said, what teachers said. Betsy, we also have a question from Veronica in the first visit. She says that families physically connect or the first visit helps families physically connect via technology. So don't know how to download or log on to Class Dojo or Google Classroom. So that was a comment she made. And then you're very welcome, Rachel. She was just saying very helpful. And then Pamela's asking, can you share your email in case we want to reach out to you? Absolutely, it's actually in the last slide of this presentation. And I believe, Betsy, we're sharing this.
Yes, we're of course sharing you and sharing your expertise. But one of the things I did want to say too is, and Christina kind of pointed to this, so it's not just kind of a cold call visit. The teachers are really, again, kind of making a phone call first. So it's kind of that gentle phone call to talk about what it will be like, and that's covered in the training. And then people are in agreement as to understanding. Everybody has a common understanding of what will happen. There should not be a whole lot of surprises. How much does the training cost? Lisa Golette said. The bridge training, what we are providing right here, right now, is $2,000. That's April 7th. For the 3-day training, which is a broader training, it's about $5,000. Now, what can happen, because I have funding through my grant and the federal grant, I do plan on doing another training in the end, probably sometime in May. So I know that some people aren't able to attend the April 7th training, but I think that we're going to offer it again because there is so much interest and looking at how this can happen. I know that district-wide there's interest in it. Yay, it's free. Thanks to Betsy. Other questions or comments? You could raise your hand if you want. Okay.
Just real quick.
Thanks, Julie.
Sorry, real quick, one quick question. You said the 3-day training, and I'm just trying to do like the budget for this for next year. So would teachers need the bridge training? And, you know, as well as like our district, whatever, stamp on it, or the 3-day training?
So Julie, what I would say, it's my experience, is that 3-day training is really in-depth, and it really is excellent because it really gives people a chance to kind of look at the whole model and practice a little bit.
Okay, so one more quick question on that then is about how many hours?
Training.
Yeah, was it like afternoon training?
It was all day, Julie.
It was 3 full days.
When I
3
was
hours. 3
working
hours.
in Bloomfield, when I was working in Bloomfield a year and a half ago, I took the 3-day training.
No, the 3-hour training. I'm sorry. It's 3 hours.
Oh, oof.
Yeah,
Thank you.
3 hours. I'm sorry. It's almost 4:30, Julie.
I know, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked the question.
Yeah, no, you should always ask the question, Julie. 3 hours. 3 hours. And then what I want you to know is, Christina, but because I'm so interested, I love this program, that we are available, that the School Family Community Partnership piece is also available to help if you need any kind of, a little support in terms of confidence. So what I heard from teachers sometimes is they said, I totally want to do this. But they said, guess what? The hardest part is the starting. Once I got started and had that conversation and I was confident, it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah, I actually had a teacher email me and said, Christina, I have no idea what to say. And so I kind of gave her a few liners to help, have that conversation, and even offered myself to be a part of the conversation with the family. So if you have someone who's leading the effort, it's always nice to have that person help support, or finding, a veteran teacher to help walk you through that process who's been a part of the parent-teacher home visits.
Yeah. The 3-hour training actually lets people practice a little bit, which is really nice. You know how you think you have all the words until you have to say the words, right? So the practice is nice as far as just doing that a little bit and feeling more confident. Very important. So I'm just gonna do this very last piece, and then I am going to, because it is 3 more minutes, right? So this whole mindset, right? And partnerships are really, it is like a dance, right? And dancers train together, school staff and parents benefit if they can develop those mutual expectations and practice together. It's a way to really kind of begin to understand where people are coming from and building relationships. So it's kind of in unison. And there really does need to be open and honest conversation about the challenges and the impacts, because this is about a little bit of transferring power, right? The institution, a school is an institution, a system, right? And families are systems too, but they're little systems. And so how do we begin to kind of say, you know what? It's not always top down. We need to work together. So that's really, are there any other questions? Because what I would like to do, very good. These are the resources. Thank you, Christina. So visit the PTHV website to look for the other research and different kinds of things. PTHV, as I said, the Yesenia Ramirez will be at our training April 7th, and she's fabulous. The Connecticut Family School Partnership website is there. The framework for the definition we have it there. And then, of course, most importantly, Christina, our expert, and Betsy, the support are there if you need additional help. So I want to thank you all. But before we go, if I don't do this, I'm going to get in big trouble. Poll. Could you answer the poll for us, please? Oh, and I got to launch it. Yes. It sounds like people are beginning to leave.
Yeah.
So what I want to say, hi, John. What I want to say is excuse me, thank you for taking the time from 3:30 to 4:30 on a Thursday. No, it's Wednesday, isn't it? It's Wednesday afternoon. It's Wednesday. Holy mackerel, right? Thank you for being with us. I want to thank Christina, my partner here, in terms of all the hard work that she does in the Windsor School District. And I hope that you contact us if you need more information. And perhaps I'll see some people at the April 7th training. We will have another one. I'm really hoping that this is a statewide effort, and I can report to the nationals that we do parent-teacher home visitation in Connecticut.
Thank you again, everyone. Appreciate you for staying on with us and listening and asking such great questions. And we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Betsy, did you want to stay on?
No, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye. I'm going to end the poll. I think we're good.